Hello and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Today we are talking about did not finish book reviews. So these are reviews that I have left on the books that I set out to review but didn't finish, and I was still able to give a constructive review on the book. I do believe in leaving DNF reviews if you have good and bad things to say about the book, or if there's such a big problem that you really need to warn other readers about it. I don't believe in just saying, didn't finish such and such percent, and then nothing else, and then leaving a star rating. That's not really helpful. Say why you didn't finish. Give some feedback. I don't condone going and leaving these kind of reviews on retail websites, sites that might harm the sale of the book, but for the sake of fellow readers and possibly even for the publisher or publicist who's working with the author, it is helpful to express why you didn't finish the book. Say what was good, say what was bad, maybe even suggest who would enjoy the book even though you didn't. Before I get into it, I am going to be doing this spiel all the time now. 2 giveaways coming up when we hit the milestones. The first one is the Let's Get Jenna monetized giveaway. That will happen as soon as this channel has the watch hours to apply for monetization. I have an option of prize packs plus a small original artwork. I will have the details down below, but you can choose an art prize or a book prize. The second giveaway that will be coming up is the Let's Get Jenna to 2K challenge, and that one will happen when this channel hits 2,000 subscribers. I will be giving away either an Amazon gift card or a small book depository order. Details for that also in the description down below. I will have dedicated announcement videos coming out very soon so that we can share them and get excited about it. I'm going to be referring to Sunday's blog post. I'll have this blog linked down below. I'm not going to read my full reviews on these books. That would make this way too long, but you can go read them. There are 7 books here that I started reading with the intent of reviewing and was able to leave a review even though I didn't finish them since last May. I have not finished other books in the past, notably The Hobbit, which I have never been able to get into enough to finish it, even though I love everything else Lord of the Rings I've ever read. Another one I didn't finish is one that an author actually sent for a review twice. They queried me as if we have never talked before after the first time I accepted their manuscript. I'm not going to reveal the title or author just yet, but if they ask me to review one more time, I will go ahead and do that DNF review based on the 16 pages that I took 3 days to struggle through. First, let's talk about Stolen by Mariana Frank. This is one I was very recently asked to do as part of a blog tour. I did still do a promo post. So this book is a retelling, drastic retake on Alice in Wonderland. We have an Alice type character. She's got a troubled life in the real world. She gets abducted by this creature who takes her to what is basically Wonderland, but post-apocalyptic World War III situation Wonderland, and she finds herself befriending this cowardly lion statue that couldn't protect the library that holds all of the information about this place. I don't know, that's as far as I got. The trouble with this one is that the story that was being set up before she was abducted, before she was stolen, is way more interesting than the story that was being told once she got to this wasteland Wonderland. If I'd received this as an ebook, I probably still wouldn't have finished it in time for the tour. I probably still would have opted to just spotlight, but I might have kept it around as something to come back to and read a chapter here and there in between other things and eventually get through it, because there's the potential that this gets better. And of course, it's Alice in Wonderland. She's going to return to her world at some point, and then maybe I can get more of that story that was more interesting at the beginning. But this was an audiobook, so I also had to contend with how much I did or didn't like the narrator. The narrator has this sort of, I don't know if it's an accent, I think it's more of a laziness / possibly speech impediment. I hear people from all over the English-speaking world making these consistent pronunciation mistakes. For example, hello instead of pillow. I really hate that vowel shift, and I've known a lot of people who vowel shift that way on specific words like pillow into pillow, but they're not shifting all I's into E's, it's just those words. There are scenes overused where the scenery in this wasteland wonderland is being described, and I think the description is that the fauna, the foliage, the bushes, whatever, are pillow forms, 2 words, pillow forms, pillow shapes, billowy shapes on the land. But I seriously had to check and see if there was a type of plant called a pillifer, and on top of that, everything came to a halt instead of coming to a halt. Everybody had been somewhere instead of been somewhere. And again, it wasn't a distinct regional accent that I could put my finger on. It was just really weird selective vowel shifting that annoyed the crap out of me. If it was a good book with this narrator, I could have tolerated it. If it was a different narrator with the existing book, I might have pushed further through it. But where I didn't like where the story was going and I was annoyed with the narrator, no go. I will not be returning to the audiobook. If I were to be sent a free print or ebook copy, I would not be opposed to giving this one a second try. And if you actually read this one and liked it, good for you. I hope it got better. Please tell me down below. Tell me that it got better. I hope so. I'm not scared off of the author or anything like that. I wasn't loving this book enough to tolerate this narrator. This next one's going to be surprising, given that I love science fiction and fantasy. I did not finish Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I know, Brandon Sanderson, like the king of modern high fantasy. I've been reading Mistborn. I read The Final Empire last month. I just read The Well of Ascension this month. I love them. Reviews coming on the blog at least. The thing is, I joined a Discord book club that is specifically doing Sanderson books, 1 book per month until we get through them all. And we started with Elantris in January. I joined like a week into January, so I already wasn't there at the very beginning. And then I went into Libby and I put holds on all of the Sanderson audiobooks so that I could, keep them in that holding pattern, like deliver it to the next person and ask me again in a week or so. I did that on all of them so that in the future, when the ones that we're supposed to read next come up, then I'll be able to read them. Elantris took all of January to come up for me, so it was like the 29th or so of January when I finally got it, and it's Sanderson's first book. It's very obviously his first published book. It's very obviously the first time he was working with a professional editor. It's very obviously the first time he got that kind of audience feedback. I wasn't connecting with any of the characters, and there is so much world building. There's too much world building. I would not be opposed to going back and giving Elantris a second try at some point in the future when I don't have as many books on the to read now list. Since I received my audiobook loan for that one so late in the month, everybody who was going to get through it was already through it, and everybody who was going to not finish it had already decided so like 2 weeks before that. So I got somewhere between 20 and 30% through. It was early February. It was time to start The Final Empire. I released my loan. I didn't finish, and so my review is very short. It's basically just, this is obviously Sanderson's first book. He improves drastically from here. I'll be back. Okay, this one I am going to refer to the blog post. Again, not reading the whole thing, just referring back to it. The next one is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This one is also an Alice in Wonderland retelling, and again, this one was an audiobook. And again, the narrator played a big factor in not finishing this one. So in this one, I only got 10% in, which I realize is not extremely far in. It still had a chance to really get interesting and hook me. My problem was there was a lot of telling and not showing. The teenage girl character was really, really whiny and unlikable. And it was just a lot of conversation between the girl and her mother One of them is Alice, one of them is Ella. I am not sure at this point which one was which. The narrator pronounced Alice like Ellis, so we had Ellis and Ella, which was getting really confusing. I took out this library loan at a time where I was rushed and I was hoping to just get through this fun little YA fantasy retelling quickly, as I did art, as I cooked, as I cleaned, that kind of thing. And I did not have the kind of time on my hands to be patient with this whiny teenage brat main character and the lack of descriptions happening. And on top of that, the narrator wasn't pronouncing names clearly enough to tell these names apart. So, like the first one I talked about, I am not interested in giving the audiobook another chance, but if I were to get a print or ebook copy, I might meander through it in between other things and see if it gets better. The next one was Rise of Knight and Sword by Miriam Wade. This is kind of a Legend of King Arthur retelling, except this is a version of Camelot where modern technology exists, and our main character, who's going to end up being the chosen one, is a librarian in modern technology world Camelot, which sounds like a fascinating idea. That's why I requested it on NetGalley and why I was so excited to read it. And then I saw the average rating on Goodreads, which is 2.3 out of 40-something reviews. Not good. There are a couple of reviews on this one where people gave it 4 stars and said, I don't know what everybody else is talking about, I loved it. The majority of people are giving it 1. I didn't get very far into this one either. It opens on this stream of consciousness, first-person point of view. Girl wakes up and goes to the bathroom and brushes her teeth and thinks about her wallpaper as she's brushing her teeth. This is not how you start any book unless you're trying to rewrite Ulysses, which I have expressed before on this channel how much I hate that book. Pretty much everybody reviewing this book said, yeah, no, this is not how you start a book, this is not interesting at all, this reads like a first draft, this needed a structural edit. This needed somebody to read through and rip it apart, looking for what's working, what isn't, and where is the actual thread of the story. Let's focus in on that. Infernal by Mark de Jager. I was very excited about this one. The cover is so beautiful and compelling. It was listed just as science fiction and fantasy. They didn't really commit on a more specific genre. We have a character named Stratus. He wakes up burnt to a crisp in the sun under the one tree in the desert. Doesn't remember who he is, and then some paladins come along and find him, and they arrest him to take him to the temple to care for him, potentially, if he's not an evil magic user. And he slowly starts to remember that his name is Stratus, and that he did something to become more powerful, and now he is this, and therefore he must be a demon. He's constantly wondering what he is, but it very quickly turns into evil demon with amnesia, eviling his way through town, killing and devouring everybody in his path and stealing from them and taking their memories and learning how to be more human from that. And it's a fascinating idea. This author does description very well, just enough description to know what's happening without getting bored of it. He writes a demon that is truly evil very well. I have 2 huge problems with this. The first one, the problem that is much more widespread, the people who didn't like this all talked about this. This problem is that this is not an empathetic character, and this is our only point of view in the book. He has no emotions, he doesn't understand human emotions, he doesn't attempt to have human emotions. So there's nothing to connect to, and none of the killing he's doing means anything. And also a lot of people have noticed that there is literally not a single woman in the entire book. Like, he's murdering his ways through towns and he doesn't find any women. Like I said, the idea is really interesting. I would like to see a Terry Pratchett contemporary take on this idea, something that would be interlaced with absurdism, or introduce a second point of view fairly early on, somebody who's more sympathetic, somebody who we're going to attached to. Somebody to be a foil to this actual pure emotionless evil. The second point, the point that not everybody picked up on, but is the reason I explicitly do not endorse this book and hope that nobody goes out and buys it after you've heard what I have to say. Stratus wakes up, looks at his hand. That's darker than it should be. He remembers that he was paler before whatever he did to transform himself into this. He is being deposited into a new body for this evil, magical, power-gaining purpose. And this new body that he's been deposited into for evil is black. And these paladins who are white come across him, and they're talking about how, oh, you know, they're that tribe to the south that nobody's in contact with, that sometimes they're that dark. And the little boy paladin goes, is he evil? Why would you say that? Because he's black. The only black man in this world is evil. And he wasn't black before he became this way. It's a white author. Not a good look. I don't know if he intended to be racist, but this is a very disgustingly racist message. I don't support it. No, I do not endorse this book. Do not buy Infernal by Mark DeJagger. So next is Race to the Finish Line by Aisha Yusuf. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So this is a story about a black Muslim girl named Aliyah, and she is about to enter her senior year of high school, and she and her family moved to this very small, very white town. And she ends up having to face literal, almost KKK Klan member level racism in this small white town. It's an interesting premise to write a black Muslim girl in a white town and write that perspective. And I know that that is the author's perspective. That is who Aisha is. The problem is this book is all tell, no show. She hasn't quite mastered the art of describing the story to us. It feels like such a fictionalizing a diary type book that she forgot to develop this self-insert into a full character. Like I said, I was really excited to read this one. I was really excited to review this book for her. I got it through NetGalley. This author paid the publisher fee to have their own publisher account on NetGalley. This is the only book that this person has listed. It's listed as published by author name Aisha Yusuf. I respect that. I respect the hustle. This person is trying very hard to get her book out there. It's another situation where the book needed another round of editing first. It needed the structural edit. It needed somebody who knows what they're doing to get a book from this level to this level to come in and work on it. And I hope that this author keeps writing. I hope she keeps trying. And I'm excited for what this author is going to do in the future. I would absolutely not be opposed to anybody going and trying this one out anyway, because this author deserves your support, for sure. I struggled, I really tried, I got about halfway through this book. The last one we're going to talk about is The Game of VORs by Andrew Orange. And I had to double check that title because if you believe all of the other reviewers who have apparently read this other material, it's a blatant ripoff of The VOR Game by Lois McMaster Bujold. Now, I know The VOR Game is book 6 in a series. I am eventually at some point going to listen to the audiobook of The VOR Game, at least as far through as I got in this one, just so I can compare, just so I can see for myself whether or not this entire novel was plagiarized. It wouldn't surprise me, on top of everything else in this book. So in this book, we have this dystopian sci-fi future for Earth, where we have the VORs, the high society, and we have the simples, everybody else, the plebeians, the peasants. Our main character, Kier, is a teenage son of a VOR, but he's not the eldest son, he's not the favorite son, he's kind of shoved off with his caretaker and his caretaker's daughter. And he's in school, and he's at the age where he's gonna do all of his exams to get into the college to be a good VOR like his daddy, except he's failed all of his exams. It takes something like 12-13% of the book to get to the point where he gets the failing grades. even though we know from page 1 that he failed it. This character's inner voice is either 9 years old when he's talking about how much he hates school and how much he wants to screw all the girls and how much this and how much that and blah blah blah, and being a boy. And then he monologues internally to himself, just musing about the history of the world they're in and how their financial system works and what VORs are. And suddenly he's a 40-year-old historian in terms of how the narrative voice works. And it turns out he's neither of those things. He's a 16, 17-year-old teenager about to finish their equivalent of high school and enter their equivalent of college, and the actual narrative voice is constantly calling him the youth or occasionally the child. It's all very contradictory. You never really get a feel for the fact that this is a young adult on the cusp of adulthood. You also get absolutely no world building outside of those internal monologues where he glitches into the mind of a 40-year-old historian. All other situations, you're left to just figure it out for yourself. On top of it being so darn confusing, it's acceptable in this culture to rape all the simples you want. If you are a VOR and you see a woman who is not a VOR, free game, free tale, go get it. Okay, sorry, he's 18, not 16 or 17, he's 18. Bad storytelling, decide what your main character is, stop promoting rape culture, and this is potentially an entire other person's novel ripped off. At the very least, they've ripped off the title and the concept for the world. Not cool. I don't endorse this one at all. Don't buy this one. Tell me if you've read any of those 7 I just talked about. Tell me if you liked them more than I did. Tell me if you also didn't finish. Tell me what books you haven't finished and why. I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. If you're looking for more to watch, I've got some suggestions up on the left side of the screen now. Don't forget to like, comment, maybe even subscribe, and if you like living life creatively, whatever that means to you, I'd love to have you along for the ride. Bye guys!